Here's why I think parents suck when it comes to teaching your kids about finances. And don't stop here. I'm just telling you, you're going to learn something in this podcast right here just about you're just going to learn what an asset versus liability is. Most don't. I talk to parents all the time and they still do not understand the difference between an asset liability. And it's very simple. You can teach it to your kids and you can learn something yourself right here. I'm literally going to teach this at a third grade level so you can let your kid even listen to this. And I promise you it's going to help them in the future. You can't raise financially intelligent kids until you teach them yourself or understand yourself. So let's get into exactly how we're going to do that. Welcome back to Unfollow the Herd podcast, where we get anything done in business, real estate, and anything we can do to unfollow the herd so we can get our investments to work for us. My kids, they always understand you give them money, right? And when you give your kids money and then they go buy whatever, do they have a value of $1? They really do not have any value on what that dollar is because it didn't take them any time to earn the $20 other than to go ask you. So what are they going to do every time they need money? They're going to ask you because that's the shortest amount of time. Now, if we convert that quickly, let's just do the first simplest thing. How can we convert that $20, $5, whatever, into time that they need to go do it? You have to go to work, put in time to make money. If you start judging yourself, let's just put this in your perspective. If you judge everything by yourself, say, hey, them pair of that Lululemon shirt is, I don't know, what are they, $80 nowadays? Okay, if I make $30 an hour, that's almost 3 hours of work. So 2.7 hours of work is what it takes me to earn that shirt. You start putting things in perspectives of time. You really want to convert your kids into thinking the same way. Now, do they guess you can go pay them allowance, you can pay them for jobs. I end up doing this. I get knocks on that all the time. But what I try to do is put their time in perspective on what they're buying. Because if they need to work for maybe a kid that earns $10 an hour, they might have to work 8 hours. That's maybe an entire day to earn one shirt. Now, if the outcome of that is great enough, they're going to do it, right? So you just have to get them to understand that time is a value of money. And since they have no passive income like real estate or anything else, they literally trade time for money anyway. So I always challenge parents to understand things in the same way. So when you're going to go buy the new iPhone for $1,200 or $1,300, just justify. If it's a business expense, much different, right? And most of you own businesses that are listening to this. If you're not, that's a lot of work that someone's going to have to put in. Convert your hourly wage or your time, how much your time is versus money. So always, that's my first perspective with kids. Try to do that. And then really the second thing, when instead of buying things for your kids, right? And I've preached this before in other podcasts, but I think it still goes a long way. Instead of just buying, like you go to Target, right? You get shirts, lipstick, I have girls, so I'm going to relate that to that. But even my boy, you go buy monster trucks or any of this stuff. You just buy the product. It could be a $7 product, which is, of course, not the cool one. Or it could be a $70 product, which might be the best one. And you just buy it because you're like, I want the good one for them so I don't get asked again. Well, they have really no intention of time or money then. That's called sheltering. When you're just buying stuff for them. I call it sheltering. Now, if you put in their perspective of they earn the money or somehow they have $100 for their birthday, right? They go into Target. What are they going to do? They're going to maximize the dollar, right? Like I can always think with my kids, it's like, okay, we have $20. Like, I'm just telling you, it's going to save you the $70 and it's going to put the kids' perspective. He's like, shit, I'll get the $7 monster truck. I'm going to get the freaking water balloons and I'm going to get this. And he's going to get all this crap. And he's going to be more happy with the $20 and stuff instead of you paying $70 for the monster truck, the Sephora gift bag, whatever the hell it is, right? So that is like my second perspective. Don't shelter your kids. Let them know what those costs are, right? Like you have to pay attention to that because I feel like if you don't, it just snowballs into you paying for everything, them not even knowing what things cost. My kids ask for me for a cell phone literally every day. They're 9 and 10, almost 11. And so I just said, well, when you make the $100 a month, that's going to cost you that. that can do that. And then there's different parents. There's safety and there's this and there's that. There's also TikTok and crap that I don't want them on. And honestly, they got to watch. They hate it. It's clunky. But hey, gets me the communication barrier that I need. And it's all we need at this point. And if the more I can keep my kids off electronics, it seems like they're just better behavior overall. But it's just like you have to make the kids understand that the value of money. And you wouldn't hand them $1,000 and say, go buy an iPhone. They might go get an iPhone, but it might be the iPhone 8 or 9 or whatever the cheaper one is. And then they're going to go buy something else, right? Like they start understanding how to maximize their money. Because us as humans, we want the most for our money. When we're investing in something, we want the most ROI, right? We want the, when we go buy something expensive, we want the highest ROI or whatever it is. But you don't understand until the money, you have the money to go buy it and you can kind of control those costs. So those two pivots, I think alone will understand money much better for your kids. I would rather you give them money and then maximize it than you just buying things for them. So, and then the second thing is take it a step further, figure out the time, see if there's a way you can control time for them, whether it's doing chores or maybe something around the house that they don't like doing. They trade the time for the money because then they'll dictate time. They'll really be efficient with their money and they'll just start getting in this concept of this is the way life is out of the gate, right? And then the third thing is you really want to teach them an asset versus a liability. So I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad to my girls. We bought the teens edition for them. We read a chapter. We talk about it. We go through it, right? And we were talking in the first part here of concept of money. We're talking in the second part now of what's an asset, what's a liability. I can ask a parent almost 90% of the time. I said, okay, you bought your house. I don't care that you have cheap debt on it from 2021. Maybe you do. Does it have any chance to make freaking money? Meaning, are you renting out the basement? Are you renting out the garage? Are you making revenue with the house? And they'll come back to me, no, but I am paying less than I would in rent. Okay, great. You said that you're paying less. And hopefully that includes not just the mortgage payment, but hopefully there's the taxes and the insurance and it's all escrowed together. And say, hey, yeah, your mortgage is $1,500 for a $200,000 house. I don't really know what the math is there. I'm just saying. Well, it's going to cost us $1,800 to go rent something. Okay, great. But did you figure in it's 1% at least a year is what you're going to be putting back into a house? If you're in a $200,000 house and it's not brand new, which is likely not, you're going to spend much more than 1%. If I build a brand new house, I'm still figuring 1% expenses per year on a brand new house. Fridges only last for 5-6 years. I've went through 3 fridges in 7 years in my house. Appliances aren't built to last 30 years anymore. There's expenses. You got a landscaping, you have upkeep, you have projects you want to do. There's all these different things. Do they really build in a lot of equity for you? I have a hard time seeing everyone pound money into their homes and say that's where their piggy bank is and their savings account is, because really they're not seeing the full valuation. Now, if I go to a rental, and let's just, flip the subject of, okay, now I live in a rental, $1,800 a month. Maybe it's a townhouse. The lawn's mowed. I don't need a mower. I don't need a snowblower. I'm in North Dakota, so that's for reference. I don't have to keep up with the landscaping. I don't have to do any of these things. Maybe I pay my utilities and that's it. I might even be home 3 weeks a month, so I'm not even home all the time. And I could rent it out to my friends at whatever, so there's an opportunity to make income there. But is it really cheaper to buy a home? There's the biggest spread ever between buying a house and renting. I tell everyone, rent. Why wouldn't you instead use your 30, 50 grand, whatever your down payment would be, go buy yourself a rental? Even if it breaks even, you're paying down the principal every month. And you're not paying any of the utilities. It's got a full upkeep. You're actually building your net worth, because now that it's a rental, guess what? The bank considers it adding to your personal financial. It went from basically when you go rent out your house, it went from a liability, meaning you weren't making any income, to an asset. And you can show that on your balance sheet. You actually have net worth. Your baked in equity is actually net worth. Most banks and the government do not see your baked in landscaping projects, whatever. You might have added $100,000 your house, they don't see it as equity. They're like, great. But if we sell your house, we're just selling it. Like it's not worth anything. It's like, we don't care. We're not going to see that as equity. It's not making any revenue. We're just dumping it. And if we dump it at cost, what your loan is, that's all we care. We're just getting out of it. That's why they don't see it as an asset. Now you tell a kid that, right? There was a lot of things we went through there, but now we start relating it. Okay, let's go to Sephora and spend $300 on makeup. Okay, go try to sell the makeup. What is it worth? Half, not even. Even if it's brand new makeup, unless you can fully return it, that's it. It's worth $1 basically. It went to zero. Basically, the money evaporated. You can say that with expensive clothes and obviously we need things, right? And I'm not getting at all of that, but I'm just trying to relate that there's certain things that are just purely liabilities. Cars are liabilities. They have no chance of making revenue. Again, if you're renting out these product types that I'm talking about, yes, you do. But these are all liabilities. Cars are obviously the biggest one. You got homes. Actually, the biggest one is a house. Don't buy a house. I wouldn't tell anyone to ever buy a house. I think we're going into a renter nation in the next 10 years. You're going to see the home ownership drop in this country. Home ownership still at like 62% or right around that out. It bounces around. I think home ownership would be below 30%, meaning 70% of this nation will be renting and not owning. As the boomers retire and these, they only want to rent now, right? The boomers don't want to take care of anything. Maybe they own 4 homes, but they all cost money and they're not really add to their net worth. So it's not a good plan, honestly. And so just really deciphering, if it doesn't make income, an asset versus liability, as simple as you can put it to a kid, if it has no chance of making money, it's a liability. If it's a chance to make money on it, you now have an asset, right? You have an asset that you can add to your personal financial statement. Most people don't even talk about their PFSs. What is your net worth? You're going to go to a bank and they're going to put some chicken scratch, my biggest thing on there is my house. And the bank's like, whatever, unless your house is like fully paid for and it's a $10 million house, but you wouldn't even be having that conversation. But if you own a $500,000 home and it's paid for, great for you. It's still a liability. You still need to put in, it's still costing you money every month. And if you rented a place for, say you rented that house for $2,500 a month and invested $500,000, you have a way better chance making way more money on that $500,000 than it's sitting in your house and watching and appreciate at, again, COVID terms. Everyone thinks it's going to go everything going up by 25% a year. We're not in those times anymore. Now you're back to 3-4% every year. And that's just not enough unless you're at the point in your life where you're 75 years old and, you're investing in bonds and diversifying in these low, just enough to beat inflation is all you're trying to do. And so again, trying to teach kids that it's, you need to understand when they go buy something, they're like, okay, what's the chance of that ever making money? 0. My girls, once we were reading the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I don't know, it might be a 100-page book, but we just talked through every chapter and they're like, well, Rich Dad in that case is, the guy who invests in all these different things. He's probably cash poor, drives a crappy car, because he knows that all the liabilities don't make him anything. So he's investing all these assets. He's buying condos, buying rentals, whatever he's trying to do, doing creative financing, trying to just get some equity. He knows the money's in the equity. He knows his money's not in the liabilities himself. Well, then you got Poor Dad, who is a doctor or, does very well, drives the Mercedes, does all the nice things, right? Looks great on the outside. The problem is you go to his personal financial statement, all he's got is a big W-2 and he's got no assets to back it up, meaning things that add value to your personal financial statement. That's your legacy, right? That's your legacy over in that asset column. Everyone's always trying to buy the jet skis and the four-wheelers and the, razors and all this toys. Boats are the worst one ever. And it just adds a lot of liability to you when the motivation actually should be on the other side. And at some point, the asset column will pay for the liabilities. Of course, that is the entire concept of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When your income from your assets is now paying for your liabilities, guess what? You don't have to trade time for money anymore, and you don't have to keep doing your job. you can just live off your assets. That's obviously the goal in life. And if you want to do that in your 40s, you need to be grinding right now. If you're in your mid 20s to mid 30s, be grinding right now to find everything to add to that asset column and try to keep those liabilities at a reduced amount. If you can teach your kids that, I promise you it'll change their lives. And hopefully you guys learned something in just a simple form as I talked about today. That'll be the best thing to ever help you. Thank you.